What's up, everybody?
Blake, we'll go ahead and get started. We're joined now by the driver, the number 11 LeafFilter Gutter Protection Chevrolet, Blake Cook. Blake, as you and I were just talking about, you were here, participated in the test in October. Now I've had a chance to run a couple of practice sessions with a few more cars. What are your thoughts on the rules package?
Well, it was a lot. The temperature was a lot cooler in October and much more pleasant. And with that said, it had a lot more grip. So with the package we had in October at the test, I feel like I was confident enough coming here thinking that we could run wide open side by side. And when we get here, the track's just quite a bit slicker and less grip than we had in the test. And the cars are a little more unstable than I had back then.
Excellent. We're also joined now by the driver of the number 1 OneMain Financial Chevrolet, Elliott Sadler. Elliott, first of all, thanks for joining us. I know this wasn't really planned, but just want to get some feedback from you guys on the rules package after a couple of practice sessions. Your initial thoughts on it?
It's definitely a little bit different than what we've had here in the past. It's this was definitely. I told Kevin this week. I've been doing this stuff for a long time, over 20 years. There's more unknowns coming into this weekend than probably what I've ever faced at a coming into a race event. But now after having 2 practices, the diffusers do a really good job. I'm really impressed and happy with the diffusers. I think they have brought the competition closer together. I think it's still going to be a lot of the same Indy, where track position, clean air out front is going to make a difference. But I don't think you're going to see the leader or the top 2 or 3 cars really get away. The diffusers are really keeping everybody together from what I've seen. I think you're still going to have to work on your handling to be able to make passes. I think you're going to have a little bit of drafting help to make passes on certain cars, probably the fastest cars. But all in all, I'm optimistic that tomorrow's race is going to be a little bit better than what we've seen here the past couple of years, as far as everybody on top of each other and close and being able to make passes. But very impressed with the diffusers so far, of keeping, even if you're a little tight or a little loose, and say the 18 gets a better run off of 4 than you do before, he just keep getting away. Now the diffusers kind of bring you back together as you enter turn 1. And throughout a race period, if you get 5 or 6 cars together doing that, I think it can create some passing.
Excellent. We'll go ahead and open it up to questions. We'll start right here with Jim and then go to Jeff Gluck.
Jim Mutter, motorsport.com for Blake. When you were here, I believe it was 3 of you doing the test.
Yeah.
What are the significant differences that you've noticed with far more cars on the track today?
Yeah, when we were here in October with 3 of us, it's like the everything was just is a little more magnified today. So the 3rd car in line had to breathe it just a hair on entry of the corners, but everybody handled pretty well where you can come off low, and as long as you had help, you could clear the leader by the entry of turn 3. And today, we're fighting a little more grip issues where we're not able to really team up and make passes quite as easy. Like Elliott said, it's going to be a lot better than it was, I think, and nobody's going to be able to break away from the field, I don't think, at all. But when we were here in October, it was a lot tighter and closer racing than it is today.
We'll go right here to Jeff, then to Kenny.
Jeff Gluck from jeffgluck.com. Where does blocking come in? Like, can you block a run if you see somebody coming, or are they coming too fast?
No, they're definitely not. In my opinion, they're not coming too fast, and I think you're going to see a lot of blocking tomorrow. I think I told one of the guys is Indy in the corners and Talladega on the straightaways, because we're racing a little bit closer, and the guys, if they get a good run behind you, they are going to get a run on you, especially if they have help behind them. So I think you're going to have to block, and I think you're going to see guys snaking, trying to break the draft and things like that. It's not going to, guys, we're not going to pack race. Let's make sure we're not going to pack race, but we are definitely going to be closer together than we've been. And the biggest thing I've seen a difference, and I don't know if I should tell y'all this or not, but the biggest difference I've seen is who's pulling the pack on creating whether you can make a lot of passes or not. And I'll use it for example, the 18 car can pull us at a 54.50. The 3 car won't pull us at a 55.50. So we're running a second slower depending on, just like Daytona and Talladega, I guess that's the restrictor plate part of it. Depending on how fast the front car can pull the pack depends on how many passes I can make if I'm 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th. If the front car is really pulling us at a high rate of speed, it's harder to make the passes. If the front car is really not that fast but got us kind of all in a line, you can run 5th, 6th, and 7th and make the passes and do things like that. And I think that's what Blake and them saw here at the test, is maybe they won't pull in the pack as fast so they can make passes. But a lot of it's going to depend on who's pulling the pack tomorrow, on whether you can really make a lot of runs and make a lot of gains. But blocking is going to get somebody in trouble tomorrow, guarantee it.
We're also joined now by the driver of the number 7 Breyers Chevrolet, Justin Allgaier. Justin, thanks for coming in for us here, kind of unplanned. Just want to get your initial thoughts on the rules package. Seemed to have a pretty good second practice session.
Yeah, really good both practices for us. Our Breyers Ice Cream Chevy is really good. You know, as Elliott said, and I don't know what has been said already, but you know, this package, there's just a lot of unknowns, and I think for all of us, you know, especially at Junior Motorsports, we try to do our homework as best we could with the facts that we had, and I feel like we did a good job. But we definitely saw that as the 2 practices went on, you know, a lot of cars got more even, and the parity was a lot greater. So I think that, you know, as Elliott said, the passing is going to be interesting. I think that tomorrow, you know, you're going to have to time your passes out, and I think that, you know, knowing what cars you're around and what pit strategy you're on, I think is going to make a big difference as well. So I'm excited about it. You know, when you got a good car, it's always fun, you know, when your car's fast. And I told them, I just luxury of being able to go out there and hold it wide open and run some laps. You know, the guys did a great job and built a great car. So now we just got to manage the small details of what the race entails for tomorrow.
Excellent. We'll continue with questions right here up front with Kenny.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. People have talked about holding it wide open. And that's been a problem at other places. They say because if you don't have to lift, you just mat it and you go out there the whole time. Is that going to be an issue here if you guys don't have to lift?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of the cars are running wide open all the way around. It's just that as you run it here at Indy, your car tends to change, whether it gets looser or whether it gets tighter. And then the guys behind you are drafting. And I'll give you an example. I was leading the pack in the first practice, running wide open all the way around, and my teammates are running behind me, running faster times than I was. So even though I'm wide open all the way around, they're drafting, getting the air off the weight that I'm making and catching us. So that's what you're going to see tomorrow. Even though the lead car can probably run wide open all the way around because he's got clean air, the guys behind him are going to be drafting and making runs and creating some more speed down the straightaway. So I don't think that's going to be a huge issue.
I think too, you know, just based on what we've seen right here already, Cup practice tomorrow, as the track gets hotter and more greasy from the rubber that's down, I think that a guy's car that handles really well is going to show up a lot greater tomorrow. And I think guys that maybe, you know, don't have the track position they want, that they'll be able to make moves. But on the flip side of it, you know, again, it's all about the draft and being in the right place at the right time. And, you know, if somebody in front of you is wide open and you're not, you're obviously going to lose a lot of lap time to them. So, you know, managing those highs and lows, I think, are going to be the key.
And for Elliott, one other thing. When
Yeah.
you say diffusers, what are you talking about?
The things on the front. What do you call them?
Aero ducts.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
I call them diffusers.
Well, I didn't want to think you meant aero duct.
Just like
and
the
you were talking
sticky
about
stuff
something
y'all
else.
put on the track every week.
Yeah.
We got a different name
The
for it.
VHT. The
I'm
PJ.
sorry, I didn't get the memo on what I was supposed to be calling them. But in Virginia, we call them diffusers.
We'll continue with our questions. We'll go here and then to Jordan.
This one's for all you guys. With the compressed schedule and then restrictor plates, how big of an adjustment has it been this weekend?
I mean, I haven't noticed anything different about just an adjustment with a tight schedule and restrictor plates. But I mean, it's I don't really think I understand the question really.
Well, I think, you know, the Cup schedule is a lot, you know, that we're used to this compressed schedule on the Xfinity side a lot more than the Cup guys are. So I think, you know, for us, this kind of becomes normal. And I think the Cup guys they're going to see the most change, I think, from anybody, you know, just because the schedule is different. But the only thing I will say that is different for me, you know, talking about tire rubber being down, normally we would have a practice in between or before or after us to really see what the track's doing, see what the Cup cars do. That's probably the most odd part for me is that there's no Cup haulers here yet. There's no Cup cars here yet. They haven't even been on the racetrack. So, you know, effectively we may not know what the track does when the race starts tomorrow. So, you know, I think that'll definitely hold an advantage to the guys that are doing double duty because they're going to see what that track does over the course of tomorrow morning. And not that the cars are going to drive anything the same. You know, restrictor plates obviously for us are going to be a lot different. You know, we're wide open in a Cup car. I would think to believe that you're going to be using a lot of brake tomorrow. So, you know, it's definitely going to change how their weekends go. So I think for us the schedule's okay, but, you know, we've definitely had to do our homework before we got here to be able to make sure our cars were good.
We'll go in the back to Jordan, then to Lee.
Elliott, this question is more for you. So you've driven a Cup car this season. Obviously, the difference between a Cup and Xfinity car, there's a lot there. But is this a basis for a package that could maybe be used on the Cup car next year here?
Not the restrictor plates, in my opinion, but the, would you say, Kenny, aero ducts? I think aero ducts here, something like that for the Cup cars would maybe something they can look at to kind of keep them closer together. But I wouldn't I wouldn't think the restrictor plates would, no. But I like the aero ducts. I've been a fan of theirs today and how I've seen them play out. As far as a guy doesn't have to have a perfectly good handling race car to kind of stay up with the lead pack because of diffusers, aero ducts are keeping everybody closer together.
We're going to go to Jeff, and then we'll go to the other side to Lee.
I was just going to follow up. So you feel like, though, that the aero ducts are doing more work than the plates? It's not
Way
so much
more.
the plates.
Way more.
Okay.
Yeah,
See,
I would agree with that.
I raced in New Hampshire with the restrictor plate, so remember that deal? Yeah. The aero ducts is doing majority of the work.
And when we were testing, we tested the restrictor plate without the aero ducts and then put the aero ducts on, and it was a big difference. It was a big gain.
I think going forward with that too, I think, a lot of us get into that rhythm of aero is so important, right? And that aero duct, it doesn't completely negate all aero, right? But it does allow the front end to be open, so everybody has a giant hole in their nose. And I think, for us, some guys put brake ducts in, some guys don't because they're, we might run them everywhere if we could, but it's too much of an aero disadvantage to not run them at some places, So there's things that this does that it just kind of makes it even for everybody. And I think for us, all of our noses are exactly the same this week. They got a giant hole in them, so it's more of a matter of where, where the arrow is in front of you and how you're driving your car that's going to make the bigger change versus, the setup or motor or anything else like that.
We'll go to Lee, then back to Jim.
Lee Spencer, Motorsport.com. Justin, your team came over the radio during the course of happy hour and said, don't show them everything you have. Clearly you have a really sporty car, but you think that the veterans and the kind of experience they have on a variety of tracks with a variety of drafting, it's going to play more in your hands because you're going to be able to know how to work the draft and the traffic, et cetera.
I think a couple things there. I was driving a little bit differently than some of the cars in front of me, and I think it was more so, look, I'm wide open, so it doesn't matter. Like, I can't not show somebody something like that. That was the speed that I had. It wasn't that it was that, but it was more so the kind of the lane that you were running and how you were kind of managing traffic. And I think that it's not just us. I think that there's other cars in this field that are kind of doing the same thing, and you can definitively see the guys that are and the guys that aren't. So for me, it was more or less don't pass some of these cars that aren't necessarily driving the track properly. But it's no different than it was a year ago. You would get out there behind somebody or in front of somebody, and I can remember going out behind Kyle last year and he driving away from me. But, like, man, I just changed how I drove the race car and picked up 2 or 3 tenths or whatever. So I think that from that standpoint, it was more so of a line and how you were kind of managing traffic. But we definitely have a good race car. I mean, I think, for us, I think we were second behind Elliott in first practice, and then we were fastest right there. So I definitely feel like at least raw speed, we have a really fast package. In traffic, it's so hard to tell. You don't know what tires people are on. You don't know how many cars were in front, how many cars were behind. Kind of the same as it is when we go to Daytona and Talladega. You don't know what reason somebody ran a lap time for. So that was just all it was, is don't get up there and pass some of the guys that are maybe not running the right lane or the right spot on the racetrack.
We'll go to Jim, then Caleb.
Jim Mutter, Motorsport.com. For Elliott or anybody else who wants to answer, I just see the recipe for some potentially incredible restarts. What do you guys think about that?
I think restarts tomorrow are going to be where you got to make your hay at the most. It's going to be like Talladega, Daytona restarts, where you're going to physically have to be pushing the car in front of it. You got to know what you're doing going through the restart zone, and you got to try to make some passes to get yourself set up, to come off turn 2 and be in the right lane getting into turn 3. So I think restarts tomorrow, because of the restrictor plate, so everybody's going to be bogged down a little bit. You can't really make mistakes. You got to know what you're doing. Are going to be a recipe for some exciting racing. And now that we know that Clean air is worth something. Even with the new package we got, the guys are going to be really aggressive on restarts to try to get to the clean air as fast as they can.
I think going forward with that too, we pushed the Daytona Talladega and we got the same rear springs. I mean, effectively your car is traveled down flat in the back. Here, everybody's on kind of different rear spring packages. Some have a lot of splits, some don't have as much split. Some are, running the back of the car real low. Some are running it real high, just depending on what they want to do. So the part that I agree with Elliott 100%. I think you're going to have to push. The problem is going to be is how hard can you push and who can you push and who's going to be able to hold on to it. And I think that the guys in the front row, unfortunately, are going to have a big disadvantage. Because you're going to be side by side getting into one. You're going to slow yourselves down. But guys behind you can get big runs. I think it's going to be interesting for sure.
Yeah, and I think it'll be more important than anywhere we go, really, because I feel like if you put yourself in a bad spot, you could lose 10, 15 spots in two corners, where typically if you go to a mile and a half, you lose 1 or 2 spots is a big deal. But with the momentum and the restrictor plates, I think it'll be the most important part of the race.
I think it's going to remind us of like the Pocono truck race.
Yeah.
Something like that. You got such a long straightaway, you can make some stuff happen. As soon as you come off one, you can do it all over again. I think we're going to see our cars are going to kind of be in that same direction.
I think the question is going to be who's brave enough to go into the outside of 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever, or be the top of 3 wide. Or
It'll be 3 wide.
Yeah. For sure. Because Blake's going to put it 3 wide. I can already see that coming.
Well, somebody will.
We'll finish up right here with Caleb.
Caleb Whistler, Speedway Judge. This is for all of you. What were your initial reactions whenever NASCAR announced this package, and what are your thoughts now after you've ran this package?
I mean, I kind of had a head start on it, testing it in October, so I knew the direction that they were going to go in. I just wasn't sure if they're going to pull the trigger. So when they decided to make the change, I was all for it because I felt like I already knew what it was going to feel like. But the track temperature here at Indy changes probably more than anywhere we go. So when it was 65 degrees in October, it was a totally different race car.
I called Blake and told him that I hated him because I knew he tested
Now
it.
how bad do you hate me?
I still maybe a little bit. I don't know. I think there was a lot of unknowns. I think there's still a lot of unknowns, but I would say that I probably wasn't as on board with it before we got here. Granted, I have a fast race car, so of course I'm not that disappointed in the package. But I think my outlook on it is that for us, we need to put on a good race for the fans. This racetrack, this area of the country, Indianapolis is a racing town. We talk about Race City USA in Mooresville, but Indianapolis is built kind of on that racing foundation, and we need to put on the best race we can. And that doesn't matter if we all drive pink race cars, right? We got to figure out how to put on the best race we can. And I do applaud NASCAR for at least trying. At the end of the day, they spent a lot of money to make this happen, as much as all the teams did. I think that goes without saying, and they put a lot of time and effort and research and money into this to make sure that it would come off as best as possible. Will it fix it and this be the greatest race we've ever had in NASCAR? I don't know. I can't tell you that that's going to be the case, but on the flip side of it, I feel like the fans that come here tomorrow and the fans that watch it on TV, if nothing else, I think that this place is going to be exciting, and I think that hopefully at some point our fans see that we're trying to make sure that we put on a great race for whoever's coming and try to see what we can do to make it the best.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming this afternoon. Appreciate it. Good luck tomorrow.